One Piece began in 1997 in the pages of Shonen Jump, the weekly manga magazine where the most famous Japanese comics in history made their debut. But even among so many iconic and long-lasting series that had a huge impact, guiding a whole genre of comics for decades, Luffy's journey to find the One Piece treasure and become the king of pirates is still the biggest phenomenon in manga history. This series has been on a record-breaking roll since 2002, when it sold the title of biggest number of initial manga printing from Takehiko Inoue's Slam Dunk. And as the years went by, this number did not stop growing. And even after achieving the highest first print for any book of any subject in Japan, it continues to rise. Since it's not unusual for a new One Piece volume to sell more than 2 million copies in just 4 days. Even after a long, continuous 20-plus year run, One Piece still dominates year after year Japan's manga sales, leaving his competition in the dust as it became the #1 top-selling manga in history. And soon, it may even surpass Batman and become the second best-selling comic book in the world. All of this is what made the series set a Guinness World Record for the most copies published for the same comic book series by a single author. And that author is Eiichiro Oda. But how exactly did he manage to achieve all of this? What is the work schedule of the author of one of the best-selling comic books in the world? And how much money has this artist already made with the over 400 million volumes sold of his work? In this video, I want to answer these questions and reveal the secret behind how Eiichiro Oda transformed One Piece into the biggest creator-owned comic book of all time. First, it's important to understand what exactly a mangaka does. Japanese artists publish chapters of their series in comic magazines with different publishing schedules. Shonen Jump, the biggest weekly comic magazine, is where One Piece is published. A Jump mangaka has got to write and draw 20 pages worth of chapter within 7 days, with some help from a couple of assistants. And that's basically been Eiichiro Oda's life for the last 2 decades. He started publishing One Piece at 22 years old in 1997. After the success of the series pilot Romance Down in the previous year. Oda's work schedule can be summed up in waking up at 5 a.m. to work on a chapter and going to bed at 2 a.m. From Monday to Wednesday, he comes up with the chapter story, the dialogue, and creates the storyboard. Then, from Wednesday till Sunday, he, together with his assistants, draws the actual chapter. Rinse and repeat with no days off. But out of the 52 weeks of the year, Jump is not published in only 4 of them, making it possible for the authors to publish 48 chapters per year, if they decide not to take a couple of personal breaks. So let's take a look at how many of these types of breaks Oda took during One Piece serialization. In the first 4 years of its run, there were none. 2001 was the first year that Oda took an unscheduled break, and for the next couple of years, he took some more. And in 2010, with the end of the first part of the story, Oda took his very first vacation since the beginning of the series, and went to Hawaii with his family to celebrate his long-postponed honeymoon, not appearing in the magazine for a whole month. After that, returning to a similar rhythm of the past couple of years. That until 2013, where he started to have a new pattern for his breaks. In that year, Oda developed a tonsil infection that he promptly ignored so that he could continue working, which resulted in his hospitalization. Some rumors even say that he wanted to keep drawing from his hospital bed, and that he even managed to get some work done. So because of situations like this, where the author put his work above his own physical well-being, Jump decided to reduce the manga publishing schedule, now giving the series a break every 3 or 4 chapters. But a mangaka's job does not end with just the creation of the manga. He also has other responsibilities: colored pages, promotional artwork, and the volume's covers and extra content. Oda's work would end there if One Piece was just a comic book. But since the series became a franchise, other projects also demand some of the author's time. For example, the One Piece anime, where Oda sometimes needs to create the design for a new character, or approve anime original stories. Situations like these should be few and far between, but they become fairly frequent when besides a comic book and an animated series, there are also movies, games, books, art books, guides, a theme park, restaurants, exhibitions, Armani suits, theater plays, a card game, merchandising, and a future American live-action TV show. That's why Oda prefers to not get too mixed up with those kinds of projects, leaving most of the work at the hands of his editors and the companies involved. But that was not the case in 2009. When the One Piece anime was about to celebrate its 10th anniversary, Oda decided to write the script for the series' 10th movie. But feeling that only working as the film's screenwriter was not enough, he took the position of executive producer and also decided to create the character, costume, and creature designs for the movie. He even got to the point of working together with the animation team, basically as an art director, where everything needed to be approved by him. From the character art, to the backgrounds, and the colors. And when he wasn't completely satisfied with something, he demanded changes, and was allowed to fix things by adding touch-ups to finalize pieces himself. Oda dived headfirst into this project because he wanted to make sure that his story was going to be perfectly adapted to film, doing everything in his power to guarantee the movie's success. And during all of this, he was still drawing the manga's weekly chapters. It's pretty clear that Oda is extremely dedicated and obsessed with his work, and that One Piece, beyond being a successful manga, is also a gigantic franchise, a true money-making machine, a machine that generates different sources of income to the author. So let's try to get an estimate of how much money Eiichiro Oda has earned with One Piece. Basically, Oda has 5 main sources of income: the manga's weekly chapters, the series volume sales, royalties from different media, international licensing fees, and merchandising. Let's begin our calculations with the weekly chapters. Shonen Jump pays its authors per page, a rate that is increased year after year for as long as the manga keeps being published. The authors also get an extra fee for magazine covers and colored pages. These rates depend on the type of contract that the author signs with the publisher and usually are not reviewed. But some years ago, the mangaka Satoshi Ho disclosed how much he earned from publishing a manga in the Morning magazine: $350 per page. Let's assume that Oda got the exact same rate for the first 20 years of One Piece serialization, with 20 pages per week, times the 889 chapters released from 1997 to 2017, he would have earned something like $6,022,000 just from the pages of his weekly manga. With volume sales, authors get a 10% cut from the cover price, 40 cents per volume. So from One Piece's 470 million volumes sold worldwide, Oda's cut was about $188 million. For royalties, Oda receives $3,000 for each new episode of the One Piece anime, and $10,000 for each animated movie. So from the first 900 episodes of the anime, Oda's cut was $2,700,000. And from the series' 14 movies, $140,000. Finally, we got the international licensing fees and the series merchandise. This would be nearly impossible to figure out. But luckily, the Japanese TV show Baka Furi in 2011, along with some manga industry professionals, calculated how much money Oda made just in 2010 from those things. From international licensing, $20 million. And from the series merchandise, they estimated that the author gets a 1 to 5% cut from the retail price of any One Piece related product, amounting to $150 million. Adding all of those numbers, we can safely assume that Oda has made a profit of at least $367,063,000 from One Piece. Which seems fairly accurate, since the Celebrity Net Worth website estimates that Oda has a net worth of $200 million. That gives him the 12th place in the list of best-selling fiction authors, surpassing even writers like Stephen King, Tolkien, and C.S. Lewis. Oda, just like those authors, was able to create a living and breathing world full of colorful, unique characters, locations, and cultures. Telling a story where part of the fun is discovering these amazing places with the protagonist. And that is only made possible thanks to the sheer volume of the series. At first, the manga was not supposed to last for so many years. Oda thought that he could finish his tale within 5 years. But as the series went on, and as it started getting more and more popular, he stopped having to worry about being cancelled, and didn't feel the need to rush through his story. And so, with the freedom to explore his story to its fullest, he started to jot down all of his ideas in notebooks, filling entire books on a weekly basis, going as far as having 17 notebooks dedicated to just a single story arc. The series kept getting longer and longer because, for Oda, this isn't just some story. It is his dream, a dream that started when he was just a child, and his favorite cartoon, Vicky the Viking, flared up his imagination, setting his heart on creating an adventure manga about pirates. His success allowed years of pent-up passion and imagination to fill his pages. Oda felt free to flesh out his world and characters and to really draw everything that he wanted. After learning about so many achievements, it becomes hard to imagine a time when One Piece was rejected several times by Jump, and a 22-year-old Eiichiro Oda was about to give up on making comics to get a regular office job. What made him change his mind about abandoning his dream were some words from his editor at the time, Kojima. He was a person who really believed in Oda's talent and One Piece potential. What he told Oda on that occasion became the foundation for all of his future success. I've never seen anyone who works as hard as you do not eventually getting rewarded for it. And that is the not-so-secret secret behind the biggest manga in history. Oda loves his job. He loves making manga, and he's addicted to One Piece. Already in his 40s, Oda has given half of his life, the biggest part of his adulthood, to his creation, writing and drawing weekly chapters for over 20 years. The author takes his work so seriously that he once said these words to a new editor: "If you want to work with me, you must be willing to die for One Piece." Behind one of the biggest selling comics in the world, there's someone who is obsessed with his work. And the goal of this person's life is to tell this story no matter how long it takes. He's someone who never ignores good ideas, and that slowly but surely advances towards the ending. An ending that has always been very clear on his mind, and that he can't wait to show to his fans. Just like the characters in One Piece, Oda is also on a journey to make his dream come true, to take his readers to the end of this story. That ends up creating a very interesting relationship between the characters, the readers, and the author, where everyone involved is part of the same journey. One Piece is so captivating because the pages of the manga are overflowing with Oda's love and commitment. Eiichiro Oda has reached unimaginable levels of success, changing the history of manga with his passion, dedication, and unbelievable obsession with his work. When asked on interviews about his hobbies, or what does he like to do in his free time, he answers, to draw One Piece.
Hello! Thank you so much for watching my video. When I finally got the guts to create this channel, this video was one of the first ones that I really wanted to make. So please leave a like if you enjoyed it. I'll be leaving in the description some links with most of the sources that I used to make this video. including an updated list of Japan manga sales, because I actually wrote and edited this video back in early 2020, so some numbers in it are a little outdated. But that's it for this month, because next month we'll be talking about one of the best anti-hero TV shows and what they can teach us about the nature of evil. See you next month.